Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
With your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio, I'm Kevin Smith. Members of the Oil and Gas Governance Network on Friday said that it has noticed an alarming trend where the government is now in full attack mode against advocates for a better Stabroek Block production sharing agreement. The civil society group, whose members are from the Guyanese diaspora, is of the view that this fury is misplaced. They believe the government's anger should be directed towards the oil companies and ensuring the country gets a fair share of the discovered resources. In a letter to the press signed by Darshanad Kusial, Alfred Bulai, Janet Bulkan, Mike Prasad, Joe Prasad, Charles Sugram, Ganga Ramdas, and Andre Brandley, the stakeholders said the government seems to forget the rights of the people as enshrined in Article 13 of the Constitution. With the foregoing in mind, the Oil and Gas Governance Network alluded that it is therefore the constitutional right of the people to fight for a better deal by lending their voices to such a cause. It also sought to clarify that it by no means is calling for a halt of the oil operations. It also noted that it has recognized that Guyana has a small population which is not familiar with all aspects of the new petroleum industry. The civil society stakeholders said it is critical that the government remembers it was elected by citizens to represent their best interests and not those by the oil companies. To show that it is working for the people, the Oil and Gas Governance Network said government should demand that there is full liability coverage for oil spills as required by the Stabroek Block environmental permits. It also said the government was applying the terms it is advocating for the new oil contracts to the Stabroek Block PSA. These new terms include the application of a 10% royalty and the payment of corporate taxes. In other news, reaffirming the disguised nature with which the production sharing agreement allows for the reporting of cost of production for each of the hundreds of thousands of barrels produced each day in the Stabroek Block, former EPA head Dr. Vincent Adams believes the true cost is actually higher than the 75% cap being reported on. As such, taking into account the rollover aspect of the debts above the 75% cap in the contract will essentially ensure that any higher profits for Guyana from its producing fields will be placed further out of reach. He was at the time adding his voice to the sentiments raised by Professor Kenrick Hunt, who in a recent public missive posited that because the production cost for each barrel was being reported based on the total revenue of oil produced, it was in fact misleading. Under the PSA, the operator is allowed to recover up to 75% of all oil produced daily, minus what is used as part of the operations, to be used as cost recovery meant to retire initial spending, as well as all costs associated with the daily operations. The remaining 25% is then divided evenly and classified as profits, while 2% of all oil produced and sold is paid to the state as royalty. Former EPA head Dr. Adams, in weighing in, posited that the cost per barrel, based on how the arrangement is structured, would mean it would be as high as 95%. Expounding further, he noted that analysts continue to cite the 75% cost oil cap as a real or actual number, when in fact it is not. He was adamant it is only an artificial number used for calculating profit oil to guarantee Guyana gets its 12.5%. And following his analysis of the accounting procedures in the 2016 Stabroek Block Agreement, chartered accountant and attorney at law Christopher Ram believes the $160 million bill for ExxonMobil's Ogle headquarters is not cost recoverable unless special permission was granted by the former or current government. Ram believes that it was Natural Resources Minister Vikram Bharat or his predecessor Raffle Trotman that provided Exxon with the requisite approval. In any event, he posited that the public deserves to know who committed this act. Ram also noted that ExxonMobil's country manager, Alistair Routledge, emboldened by his increasingly comfortable relationship with the PPPC government, reacted to Mahipal by declaring that the approximately $160 million would be recovered using Guyana's oil. In reviewing the contractual provisions that state what costs are recoverable, Ram said there is no mention that a headquarters to be used by a single contractor is fair game. Taking the foregoing into consideration, Ram in closing said, and I quote, "There is no doubt that when it comes to maladministration, negligence, slackness, and squandering the people's patrimony, not even water, let alone oil, separates the PPPC from the APNU-AFC." And the government of Guyana on Friday signed a $35 million contract with a German-based company, Veridos Identity Solutions, for a single electronic identification system and cards that will be issued to Guyanese. The official contract signing between the government and Veridos took place virtually from State House. President Ali, as well as Prime Minister Mark Phillips, Senior Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, and Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, attended the ceremony. President Ali said the single electronic identification system being developed for Guyana will not only enhance the ease of transactions, but will be one of the most technologically advanced. He said too that the cards will be compliant with 180.13.5 of the ISO standard and will be accepted by the International Civil Aviation Organization for international travel. Meanwhile, ExxonMobil, through its subsidiary Esso, has commenced installation works in anticipation of the startup of production activities later this year at the third deepwater oil project in the Stabroek Block, Payara. According to a notice published in Thursday's edition of the Kaieteur News by Marad, the operator recommenced installation activities in the Payara field of Guyana's exclusive economic zone on March 7th. The exercise is scheduled to conclude on November 30th and will incorporate the use of the vessel PLV Saipem Constellation. Mariners have been advised to stay clear of the vessel and navigate with extreme caution when in the area. And now let's tell you, 46-year-old Tito Brown, known as Tommy and Yankee, was found guilty and sentenced to serve 4 years in prison for trafficking two Jamaican nationals. Brown had reportedly offered to pay the Jamaican nationals to work for him on a farm, but instead took away their passports and leaving them to work on a campsite for several months. Brown made his first court appearance to answer to the trafficking persons charge back in May 2021. He had denied the charge, which stated that between December 2020 and April 2021, he trafficked the two Jamaicans. The AFC on Friday said that it is mulling court action against the government of Guyana for failing to conduct timely audits of the expenses billed to the country by ExxonMobil. The party, at its weekly press conference, said that it is most egregious that taxpayers are funding the development of the oil sector but are uninformed about what they are paying for. Guyanese are yet to be privy to the details of an audit report conducted to review the expenses Guyana is paying for. Further, the party posited that the country is losing billions due to inaction by the government to conduct the audits in keeping with the provisions set out in the 2016 PSA with the oil company and its affiliates, Hess and Sinok. And to wrap things up as usual, we turn to page 7 of today's Kaieteur News. A government dancing to Exxon's tune. The government of Guyana and ExxonMobil are in talks as the oil company seeks an extension on the period for it to relinquish unexplored portions of the Stabroek Block. It is the same ExxonMobil that has refused to come to the table to discuss better terms for Guyana in the lopsided contract they are enjoying. But our clueless, selfish government is all too willing to acquiesce to their request for a delay in the relinquishment. That's classical, Irfan Ali and Bharat Jagdeo dancing to ExxonMobil's tunes. And that does it for your news at noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.